Now that you know how to craft a great cocktail, it's time to learn about decor and specifically flowers. And we have the perfect person to talk with us about that. So in 2009, at age 26 years old, celebrity florist Carly Cylinder founded Floral Design Studio, Flower LA Inc. What started as a daily delivery service based out of her small apartment quickly grew into a bi-coastal full-service studio. Flower LA specializes in events for the beauty, fashion, and tech industries, installations, and high-end weddings. She is the host of the Flower Kitchen on Blueprint with NBC Universal, and Vogue named her and Flower LA as one of the best flower classes in the country. Her first book, The Flower Chef, A Modern Guide to Do-It-Yourself Floral Arrangements, was published in March 2016 by Hackett Book Group and named Best Books of 2016 by Amazon. She has worked in nearly every major city doing celebrity and luxury events. Please welcome Carly Cylinder.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
I was just, as you could see, chugging my coffee, and it actually says, "Love you to the moon and back." And I bought this when I moved to Nashville, as I told you. I live in Nashville now, and I bought it for myself to just a reminder that love me to the moon and back. I don't know, cheesy.
What a great way to like start your day with coffee, saying that. I think that's fantastic.
I'm chugging it now at what your time, because I am not a morning person.
Well, so
I'm buying all her books. I love gin, and I thought, oh my god, all these people that hate gin, what are they gonna think? But I didn't know how easy it was to make a drink, and that you start with the cheapest first. That was a good.
Isn't that great? She had such wonderful tips, and you know, just took all of the mystique off of, you know, the of creating a great cocktail. So you really know how to craft a beautiful flower arrangement. And right now, with the world being in the place that it is, I think we're all thinking a little bit more about our interiors and having things around us that just make us smile and feel good and, well, feel beautiful. So I'm curious, if one is going to put together an arrangement themselves, what would you say to the person that says, oh, I'm kind of klutzy, I'm really not artistic, I really love flowers, I'd love to have them on my dining room table,
Yes.
You know, help me. What do I do?
Okay. Oh, I flipped to the right page. So my book it came about because I wanted to be like the Rachel Ray of flowers and make it like super easy, super basic. And so when I was teaching private students and then group, but now I do private again. And so everything in the book is kind of like flower 101, just to get started. The easiest thing someone needs to do is when you put in flowers, they just flip to one side, and it's very frustrating. And that's because there's nothing holding them in place. So the very easiest thing I would tell anyone to do, like the #1 floral supply they need, is floral vase tape. They can buy it off Amazon. I think on Amazon's like $8, whereas the floral wholesale will be like $2 or $3, but still it'll last forever. And you can see, I hope, do you see?
Oh yeah,
The grid. So a lot of times, can you see that okay?
Yes, we can definitely see that.
I am clumsy, and when I worked at a flower shop and I would bang all the vases, oh my god, the owners would just keep going nuts.
So you started your own thing where you could bang away, right?
Anything I wanted on the floor. Yeah, so using the vase tape will be the simplest way to create an arrangement, and you just make a grid. I always tell people to make sure they're buying the vase tape. Don't use Scotch tape, even though a lot of people do that. The tape is waterproof. It's thicker. You'll see it if you ever get an arrangement. Sometimes you'll see that that's what they did. And it's just floral vase tape. In flowers, we have lots of names for these tools and people call them different things, but the brand name is Oasis. I don't get paid to say that. They don't need me to say that. They're probably worth $1 million, but it is better. There are like knockoffs, and I just found that it won't break. So you would make a grid. It takes 1 minute, and then you can put in the flowers without all of that frustration. Whether you're just getting a bunch of hydrangeas or sunflowers or roses, that's going to be the easiest way. You make it about 1 inch apart. So if I had like a 4 or 5 inch vase, which is just about that big, I would probably do I'd probably do 3, like a 3 by 3, and then wrap it once around. So you're gonna go one way, another way, and then wrap it once around.
Like a basket. So like you're making literally like a tic-tac-toe board on the top
exactly.
of it.
I've used that in my book. Yes, that is correct. And then you would fill the water after, because if your vase is even just a little damp at all, it will fall off. So I will do that and then fill it with water. If, say, we were doing a large event, which isn't going to happen in your home, and you're doing like 40 of these, I would always prep the vases a day or 2 before, just because prepping the vases and the flowers is the most time consuming, not the actual arranging. But I would say, start with that. I don't really use like a go-to recipe, because a lot of my arrangements are super colorful and a lot of variations, but you could do like 2 main flowers and a filler, or like a roses, hydrangeas, and then maybe some greenery, something like that. Just to keep it simple. Use your backyard flowers, your neighbors, whatever you have on hand. So I would definitely do that. Make sure you change the water. That would be the #1 tip for longevity. But it's actually pretty simple. I would just say that's the way to go. Order on Amazon. You could use that and maybe some clippers. I mean, honestly, even if you had scissors, household scissors, that would not be great, but the tape is the way to go.
So, great advice. So if we're creating a simple arrangement, you said 2 flowers and maybe a filler, how do I start? Let's say I have a round vase. I've created that tic-tac-toe grid on the top. And do I start with the center? And what do I do in terms of height?
Okay, so it's really interesting, because again, when I was doing these group classes, especially I always taught at Brooklyn Greenery, where we just let students make whatever they wanted using the same flowers. And that's what I do for all my classes. I don't make them replicate mine. So everyone will naturally have their own aesthetic. I do, even when I try to make something else, I'm like, why did I just make the same thing? We just naturally do. So you kind of have to keep that in mind of a little bit what you want it to look like, but you always generally want to start with the biggest flower first. So you'll put in the biggest flower and then work to the smallest. And then keep in mind that whatever you put in last is the first thing you're going to see. So say I had dahlias or anemones or something that like was really the main hero focal point, I would put that in last, because that's what you're gonna see. If you wanted something more rustic, I would start with the greenery first. I had worked previously to starting my company at flower shops, like very high end, where we did the flowers and then just like a little bit of greenery, that was kind of the style. But now with everything being so rustic, you could start with the greenery first and then fill it in. The rule of thumb traditionally is that the flowers shouldn't be more than twice the height of the vase. So if you have a vase that's this big, it shouldn't be higher than that. That's not true now. Now we see little vases with tons of flowers jammed in, And you just want to make sure it's balanced. So while you're arranging, just turn it every so often so you don't end up with a one-sided arrangement. And if I was going to do something more traditional, I would work from the outside in, like kind of put one flower, then the other, and I create an outline almost. So I would create almost like a spherical look. If you're doing something more rustic, I would say asymmetrical. I create the outline first with the greenery or the longer flowers like a snapdragon, anything that's very long, like a delphinium, iris, anything like that. And I would form sort of like an S or like an L or a V, and then put in all the other flowers lower. So I'd kind of have like these taller flowers, and then I would fill it in with lower and just a variety of height so that it just looks more textured. And you could create any style even using a singular flower. So, you know, just because you're using, I'll go back to dahlias, like all dahlias, which is one of my favorite flowers, you can create either a tight shape or more of a loose shape. It really just depends. And it's hard, especially at home, if you're making a one-off and you've never made it before. A lot of it is just trial and error. You know, you might have to rearrange it a few times. I always tell people, like, that's what you're gonna have to do. Or if you run out of flowers, say, which happens, and you just have tons of empty space, the only way to solve that is to bring it in smaller. So I always say, cut it another inch or two. It's of course going to look smaller, but you will have to take out the stems, recut it. There's patience involved, which I don't really have. And I would also, just one other tip is it's always easier to work faster. So if you're trying to overthink it or place a flower just so, you're working with things that aren't uniform. It's the nature of it. I have a lot of type A students that just, they go insane over this, you know, and I'm like, it can't be exact because all your flowers aren't exact. So if you work faster, the flowers will hold each other up and balance each other. It's just easier, and then you can go back and kind of futz around with it.
Great, great. Are there, you'd mentioned, you know, possibly 2 flowers and a filler. Are there combinations of scale that you suggest? Like if you have a larger flower, do you pair it with a small flower or a medium flower? I'm just curious if there are any formulas that we could.
Right. That's a good question because, yeah, okay. It's not what you're using, it's how you arrange it. So I always tell people that too, right? Like if you had, say, roses and baby's breath, which a lot of lower end florists will make those hideous kind of like Mother's Day arrangements, right? And it's just kind of all mixed. The reason it looks like that is because it's spread out. If you took those roses and put them in the center and then made a collar around it with baby's breath, right? That would look totally different. It would be gorgeous. So I don't really have that exact formula. If I was using, we'll just go with hydrangeas because they are very common, and a small flower like a ranunculus, let's just say that. And I'm arranging, so it's a very big flower and a very small flower like the size of a quarter. If I just put it around, it would sort of polka dot it, right? It would be hard to look at. So if you're using the smaller flower, you want to cluster them together. So I would do like 3 or 5 in one area. And like all design, you want to stick with odd numbers. That's just generally aesthetically more pleasing. So I would just do like 5 here, you know, 2 or 3 here. You want those like maybe 3 little clusters.
Excellent, excellent. So 3 or 5. What if one is going to give a gift of flowers, what do you feel like a gift of flowers says to the receiver?
Oh, I mean, I think it says I think it's like any gift. I'm thinking of you and I want to brighten your day, you know?
Oh, it's not, that's very nice. That's very nice.
I want that.
Can I ask the best gift of flowers you've received and why?
Oh, that's a good question. You know what? All of my boyfriends in the past wouldn't get me flowers. And I was like, I want flowers.
Because they were intimidated because you're, a master of flowers.
And I had my like a long-term relationship. He would go to like Whole Foods and then just put the whole bunch on the table. And I'm like, no, I don't want to work. Like, at least try to arrange it. You know what? I remember when I was like 18 or 20, I think I got this like huge bouquet, and that was so lovely. But I have another good ex-boyfriend story. These are all ex-boyfriends. We broke up, and I don't do daily orders anymore. Like, I used to just have a little service, but I did, and we broke up, and he ordered flowers from me to me. But I was like, you just basically gave me $80. Like, I'm not, like, I'm not, it was pretty stupid, honestly. But I was like, okay, thanks for the money. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get flowers all that often, but I'm just happy if someone gives me anything.
That's
I guess
sweet.
it is intimidating, but
That's very sweet. If our audience has any questions for Carly, please type them in. Um, so in terms of using flowers in the home, if when we get back to it and we have people over for dinner, are there any suggestions you have on what we put on a dining table?
oh, well, the easiest for most people would just be to do a bunch of small vases down the entire table, because we all have leftover random vases. I would not tell someone to if I was doing this for a job, I would probably do like long and low arrangements, about 12 or 18 inches. But I'm not even going to do that. So a mix of bud vases, any sort of mix and match going down the table. Now, something to keep in mind, I'm just looking at this. I only keep greenery in my house, honestly, which is kind of funny, but it's true. So this is a tiny vase. It's like 3 inches. And something to keep in mind is you can extend out really far. So you could probably even extend out like that much, which maybe would be 5 inches on each side. So that's 13 inches total in length. It's always better to start with a smaller vase, because when you add in everything, it just looks so much like more lush. It looks way better. I only discovered that a few years ago. I used to start with big things. So small vases, wildly loose, going down a table, making it look like a runner, whatever candles you have. I prefer to always work with a solid base, because you don't have to be so neat with everything, but most of us do have clear bases. So I do have a little selection in my home of just leftover random like gold bases, and that is by far easier.
Yeah.
But a bunch down the table.
Lovely.
Or one more. You can go outside or whatever, get greenery, make like a garland, and that would also be super easy. If you're just using it for one night, you don't really have to worry about things being in water. So I would just create a greenery garland, find whatever flowers and tuck them in. They don't really need to be in water. Roses can last, oh my God, I've had them out of water for like 2 days, which I wouldn't recommend, but they will last a while out of water. So you could just pop those in. It's on your table, so you don't really have to worry about the mechanics of tying it off.
Pretty beautiful ideas. So there are a couple of questions. 2 of them are related. Any flowers you would avoid and why? And is there a total no with arranging flowers?
Okay, so the first one, I'm going to go back to hydrangeas, because they're the most sensitive to heat. I will say that a trick that a lot of people don't know is that hydrangeas drink through their petals. So you need to submerge them in water. I run them under my faucet at home before I arrange. That will definitely help. But outside, if it's hot, they're going to wilt. They're super sensitive to heat. We use this preservative spray called Crown and Glory that I spray on everything. And my team always laughs because I spray copious amounts, especially for an event. But honestly, outside, if someone's like having a wedding or a dinner party or anything, and it's super hot and you're putting hydrangeas and you soak them underwater and put the spray, it doesn't matter. They will wilt, you know? So that's the main one. And then the second question was, what was it? Absolute no?
Any flowers you would avoid, and if so, what is a total no with arranging flowers?
Okay. A total no, which makes me, I have so many. But I would say for the design aspect, you never want to put a flower straight up and down. So they should always be slightly angled. So if I'm using a vase, I put them in at a slight angle. If you put them just straight, especially in the center, that's all your eye is going to look at, and it's very distracting. It does not look good. The only time I would say that's okay is if you, and this style really isn't super popular anymore, but like a pave, like a dome where the center would be straight up and down, and then it kind of, you know, curves around, or rows, like if you're actually doing rows of something. Other than that, always angle the flowers in. And then absolutely no greenery below the water line. I'll use my little greenery over here. So actually I would generally not put any greenery on the stems below the top of the vase. I just want to see the stem. That is like a huge pet peeve. If I send someone flowers and they send me a photo and I see the greenery in the vase, I'm like, what are these jokers doing? It looks super sloppy. It creates a ton of bacteria. It'll start to break up. It's gross. So do not do that. If, say again, going back to my team, if I'm looking at everything people made and I see that, I have one designer that would always just stick it in the center, and I'm like, don't do that, you know. So that's my main.
That's all really good advice to avoid. And one other question that came in is, do you have any recommendation in terms of flowers for people that may be allergic? Are there any flowers that are, you know, quote unquote safe?
The like fragrance, I would assume.
Yeah.
I would go with tropicals like orchids, ginger, probably that. There's no scent in those. They're super long lasting. They'll last 2 to 3 weeks also. So that's nice. They're more expensive, but they're long lasting. So I would say tropical flowers are a safe bet.
Great, great. You have given us so many wonderful tips today. I can't wait to craft something myself. So Carly, if we want to find out more about you, follow you, etc., how do we do that?
Well, there you go. Let's see if everything
we do it. And I will share with the audience that that Carly's Instagram is quite stunning. So definitely check that out.